8-game slate for tonight in MLB DFS, and at least for me, it's very clear that the top two pitchers are Lance Lynn and Yu Darvish, and that leaves us with a very clear directive for today. We have to identify whom we want to prioritize between those two guys, and then how we find salary to get to them, because Darvish is 11.5, Lynn is 11,000, and that's not super low. So we got to rank those two guys, find any alternatives at pitcher, and then decide where we want to go with stacks to jam in Lance Lynn or Yu Darvish for tonight's slate. Welcome on into the solo shot. That's right here on the FanDuel Podcast Network and numberFire.com. My name is Jim Sonis. I am a senior writer and analyst for numberFire.com, here to preview today's 8-game main slate with lock set for 7:05 for tonight. There is only one weather note for today. That is that there is a chance of rain in Pittsburgh for the Marlins and the Pirates. It looks like the rain odds increase as the game goes along, though it doesn't look like heavy rain. I'd check back on that one later, but either way, they should be good to go for tonight, at least to start. We'll see how things play out after that. A programming note for the solo shot here. I am out Friday through Tuesday. So no solo shot from me, but you will still get one in your podcast feed via Tom Vecchio. You, of course, know Tom Vecchio from the Daily ISO and the Daily Deke, our NBA and NHL podcast. Tom, big MLB guy as well. So he'll handle the solo shot Friday, Monday, Tuesday. He'll handle the Q&As as well for Friday and Tuesday. Monday's Q&A will be different because the MLB draft, I believe, is that night. It's a 2-game slate. It's a very weird slate. So I'm assuming it's because of the draft. Either way, something different will be on the Q&A that day. Either way, Tom is with you Friday, Monday, Tuesday for the solo shot. I'll be back with you on Wednesday to talk about that slate. Follow Tom on Twitter at DFS_Tom to get your solo shot fix in. And also just make sure you're subscribed to the numberFire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed wherever you get your podcasts. The Belmont Stakes is coming up this weekend, and FanDuel Racing is helping you get in on the action. FanDuel will match your first deposit dollar for dollar up to $50 when you open a new racing account. That is free money you can use to turn race day into payday. There is no promo code needed. Just download the FanDuel Racing app, make your first deposit, and you are off to the races. The app is super easy to use, and most payouts occur in a matter of minutes. Start building your bankroll today and be ready for race day on Saturday. Download the FanDuel Racing app, make your first deposit, and get up to $50 free on FanDuel. Go to racing.fanduel.com for more details. Pitching preview for this Thursday main slate. Yu Darvish is the highest salaried pitcher on FanDuel. He checks in at $11,500. Lance Lynn is $11,000. Then it dips down to Adam Wainwright at $9,000. So at least you're getting a discount on the non-Lynn and Darvish pitchers. Griffin Canning, Casey Mize, and Taijuan Walker are the others at $8,000 or higher. So to me, again, it's Darvish, Lynn, and the rest of the pack. Our edict for today is to decide which of those two guys we prefer. And the top guy for me is going to be Lance Lynn. There are a couple things that help Lynn leap in front of Darvish for tonight. The first one is pitch count, because we know Lynn will go deep into games. He went 82 last time out, but that was part of a 7-inning doubleheader. It's important to keep note of that when you're tracking pitch counts, making sure that you are grading on a curve when it's a 7-inning game versus a 9-inning game. Before that, Lynn went 104, 109, and 111 pitches. And the pitch count is big for both his floor and his ceiling. It gives him more wiggle room if he has a bad inning. If he has one bad inning, goes 30 or so pitches, you still got, like 80 or so to burn. That's a really big boost to have for a pitcher's outlook. The other thing for Lynn is the matchup. He's facing the Tigers with an 89 WRC plus against righties, 27% strikeout rate. That is a big number. It is the third highest on the slate. Other high strikeout teams are facing much lower tier pitchers. So if we're looking for a guy who is really good and in a plus matchup from a strikeout rate perspective, Lynn is going to be that guy. That means that Lynn can build a big point total via either efficiency or volume. And that's a big relief to have. Again, 2 routes to upside. You love to see that for sure. The efficiency has been there too for Lynn, because he has a 1.37 ERA this year. He has not allowed more than 3 runs in any start. He has allowed multiple runs just 3 times in 9 starts. And he also has not faced Detroit yet this year, which means that the schedule not influenced by them, but also they don't know what he's throwing. They've seen him in the past, but it's a different thing for sure this year. So I love the overall range of outcomes that Lance Lynn has. I think that's enough to make him the top option over Darvish for tonight. Now, Darvish is definitely in the same tier as Lynn. I will say that for sure. I feel firm in ranking Lynn first, but I also think that Darvish is in that same tier for sure. On a per-pitch basis, Yu Darvish is the better pitcher than Lance Lynn. For the full season, Darvish has a 3.31 skill interactive ERA. Strikeout rate is 30%, 6% walk rate. He is also allowing hard contact just 32% of the time. He has better marks than Lance Lynn in all four of those categories. So if it were just based on effectiveness, I would go Yu Darvish. But he doesn't have as high of a pitch count, doesn't have as good of a matchup either, and that's why I favor Lynn. It is enough to push me on to Lynn, but it's not enough to push me off of Darvish. The Mets have a 92 WRC plus against righties. That is it's a below average mark, just a little bit better than the Tigers. They're the second lowest ISO versus righties in the slate. Their 23% strikeout rate is better than league average, which is another part of why we should favor Lynn over Darvish. But it's not like they're the Astros. Like, they're a low strikeout team, but they're not a no strikeout team. Darvish has also thrown enough pitches to have a ceiling here. He has gone 93 and 92 his past two outings. He was at 98 5 starts ago. He's in a good park for pitching due to the lower temperature there. So to me, I'd be comfortable going the entire slate tonight, not using a single other pitcher on tonight's slate other than Lance Lynn and Yu Darvish. Both these guys are very good. They're safe enough where I feel like I'm not taking a massive risk by focusing just on them. So it's Lynn 1, Darvish 2. They are in the same tier for me, though, so I won't talk anybody out of. If you want to flip-flop those rankings, totally okay. But for me, I feel very firm in saying it's Lynn 1, Darvish 2, massive, massive gap to the rest of the pack. Now, I do want to give out a value pitcher for today because, some of you don't want to spend that much. I get it. Or maybe you aren't as willing to just load up on two guys as I am. The third pitcher for me is a risk, but it's one I am okay taking. That is with Eliezer Hernandez. He is coming off the 60-day injured list, and it's his first start back. Massive, massive red flag to start things off that way. I think that there's enough to feel good about him, though. First off, the pitch counts for Hernandez were built up in AAA. In his 3 rehab starts, he went 44, 55, and 79 pitches, which means he should be able to go about 90 or so tonight. So that's good. Second, Hernandez was a really good pitcher last year. The ERA was good, but we care more about the peripherals in a small sample. It was just 6 starts, and the peripherals were phenomenal. He had a 3.17 skill interactive ERA, a 32% strikeout rate, and a 5% walk rate. He didn't get many ground balls, so it's not a perfect profile by any means, but the strikeout number there is huge. He's facing the Pirates today. They have an 88 WRC plus against righties, not a lot of power. They're not a big strikeout team, and when you combine that with the risk of Hernandez coming off an injury, I think it's enough to keep me from going too hard here. And again, I'd be okay just not going anyone else. But if I'm looking for the most interesting guy on this slate outside of Darvish and Lynn, it's probably going to be Hernandez. So if you decide to go here, don't go too crazy because, again, he had a biceps injury. It's a pretty big one. He's missed the past 60 days. There are risks here. But if you want to snag some shares at $6,800, I don't hate it at all, and he would be number 3 for me. So to me, it's really where you just get as much Darvish and Lynn as you can tolerate, and then if you want to deviate, I would go to Hernandez after that. Let's move now to the stacking discussion, and the main focus for today will be identifying value plays with upside so we can get to Lynn and Darvish in the 11,000 range. 2 of my favorite stacks that actually have both a little bit upside and some salary savings are in the same game. That's the Twins versus the Royals in Kansas City. I prefer the Twins side, so we'll talk about them here. We'll run through the appeal of the Royals in things to watch. The Twins are facing Chris Bubich. Bubich does a decent job of keeping teams on the ground, but his plate discipline numbers very stackable against. He started this year back in the bullpen, and he has since moved into the rotation. We got 4 outings for Bubich since his pitch count got to 80-plus pitches. And in that time, he has a 4.95 skill interactive ERA with a 21% strikeout rate. His walk rate is 13%, and his hard hit rate in that time is up to 44%. That is one of the higher marks on this slate. He's also allowing a 39% fly ball rate. The batted ball numbers look a lot worse once you take out his time in the bullpen. once he's been, pitching longer stints, he's not been getting as many ground balls, not limiting as much hard contact. So that's why I am interested here. It has not gotten him in trouble yet. He has allowed just 3 earned runs across those 4 longer stints, but it's come close. He let up 9 hard hit balls against this very same Twins team last week. Not many of those were on the ground, and now they're seeing him for the second time in a week. I think we should be in on the Twins here for the repeat matchup to see if the familiarity can jumpstart things for them. Now, there's no Mitch Garver here. Obviously, that's one less righty to use for the Twins, but between Nelson Cruz, Josh Donaldson, Kyle Garlick, Jorge Polanco, Miguel Sano, honestly, Ryan Jeffers might be an option as well. He just got called up, so, take that with a grain of salt, but did play pretty well last night. Should benefit with a lefty out there. So I think that Jeffers, at least interesting as an option for today as well. The minimum salary could potentially go there. So the Twins, to me, despite the fact they have let us down in an okay way, like they haven't been total flops, but they have not been great the past 2 nights. I still think that they are an option for today. We'll talk about the other side of that game and things to watch. As far as our second stack, we saw Vladimir Gutierrez make his debut last week. He performed pretty well. He allowed 5. He went 5 innings and allowed just 1 run and just 2 hits. I'm not sure if it's enough to cross off his minor league track record, though, which leads me to stacking the Cardinals against him for his second start. Gutierrez has been impressive in AAA this year, too. So he's got 4 total starts. The 3 in AAA, he had a 2.65 ERA with a 31% strikeout rate. Those are really good numbers, and we should care about that. The only issue is that it's a big deviation from what he did in the lower minors. He spent all of AAA, or I guess earlier, I should say, not lower minors, because in AAA back in 2019, he had a 6.04 ERA then with a 19% strikeout rate. He didn't limit hard contact. So this year, the strikeout rates are up big across the minors. And I mean like all the minors, not just for him, across all minors, because a lot of these guys weren't able to play last year. So it's possible Gutierrez has made big improvements. I just can't tell yet if that's true or if the increased strikeout rate in the minors has made him look a little bit better than maybe he possibly is. That means there's a chance that the 29 version of Gutierrez is still in there, and I still think that that might be the most likely outcome. And if that's the case, the Cardinals will be a good stack for today. I think it's worth giving them a swipe here and seeing what happens. The Cardinals do help us a bit to get to Darvish and Lynn because nobody here has a salary higher than $3,400. Only 3 guys are at $3,000 or higher. So I do want to get to O'Neill. I want to get to Arenado, who's been pretty powerful this year, to my surprise. Goldschmidt as well. So I need to find ways to get there. And of the lower salary guys, I would say I'd prioritize Yadier Molina and Dylan Carlson. Molina is $2,700. He has good batted ball numbers versus righties this year with a 178 ISO. Carlson, not quite as high as Molina for me, but I do think that both those guys are solid value plays, and I'd rank them both above Tommy Edman despite the speed that he has. So to me, I would use Molina and Carlson as a way to get salary flexibility to get to Arenado, to get to O'Neill, get to Goldschmidt, and make this stack work while also using Darvish or Lynn at pitcher. For our third stack, we talked a couple of times about how I prefer the Angels against righties, because when we have them against the lefty, we're losing the platoon advantage for Jared Walsh and Shohei Ohtani, but I am okay with them here against Justice Sheffield. Sheffield hasn't pitched as well this year as he did last year. His ERA is up to 4.96. His strikeout rate is down to 16%. His expected ERA, if you go to Baseball Savant, is up more than 1.5 runs. So Sheffield knows this. He's trying to reclaim what he did last year because over his past 4 starts, he's cut back on his sinker usage in favor of more changeups. That's actually led to his strikeout rate going down even more. He's also allowing a bit more hard contact in that stretch. So I'm not expecting this to be the Sheffield going forward. I'd expect him to go back to what he was doing earlier in the year because clearly it's not working out yet. Even then, though, if he goes back to his previous form, he's going to let up balls in play. And that's good for the Angels here. He did shut them down earlier this year, so keep that in mind. But I am expecting more this time around, despite the fact that Mike Trout is not available for tonight. So I want to stack the Angels, and I rank them third after the Twins and the Cardinals for today. It is worth noting, though, that Phil Gosselin is one guy I would be pretty wary of here. He starts against lefties, but doesn't always finish the game. They were facing a lefty on Tuesday, and Gosselin started that game, and he played just 4 innings. That was in part because they were playing in a National League park, so pinch hitters are more relevant there, but the guy they pinch hit for him had nothing to do with the pitcher. It's not a double switch or anything. They just pinch hit for him because there was no longer a lefty out there. So Gosselin is someone I'd be wary of, even if he's at an ideal spot in the batting order. So proceed with caution there. There are some other guys like Taylor Ward tends to play more like full games, I guess. So you do have options as far as other guys there, but between Anthony Rendon, Justin Upton, if he's able to play, Ward, if he plays, you should have some options here. So, and potentially Juan Lagares as well, given that he tends to hit pretty high in the order. So you've got righties you can turn to. That should make it a lot easier to skip over Gosselin and go to other options for today when stacking the Angels. Let's finish up here. Things to watch. I mentioned before that I like the Royals in that same game as the Twins. They are facing Jay Happ. Happ is letting up a lot of balls in play, a lot of fly balls, a lot of hard contact, which is exactly what we want for stacking. The only reason I didn't put the Royals in stacks is because I don't know who will play. We have not seen Jorge Soler or Alberto Mondesi come back yet. If they both play, I would like the stack quite a bit because we have Soler, Mondesi, Perez, Santana, guys like that. So this would be a good stack, I would think, if they both play. If they sit, it's a good place for one-offs like Perez. But outside of that, just keep an eye on the Royals lineup for today. If we get Soler and Mondesi back, then good to go. If not, one-offs. It's a really bad park for stacking, but I do think you could consider the Giants today. They're facing Zach Davies. Davies getting a bit better as the year goes along. The fly ball rate is down to 28% over his past 5 starts, but still a super low strikeout guy. The Giants can hit for some power despite hitting in a terrible, terrible park. I think they work as an option, and I don't say that very often in that park, so I'm okay with the Giants despite their imperfections from a park factor perspective for tonight. Finally, I'm okay with some one-offs on the Brewers today against John Duplantier. Duplantier ran into some trouble in his first starts. He also hasn't had the best of outings this year in AAA. There is a chance he gets more ground balls than we'd like, which is why I wasn't super high in the Brewers. Also, it's the Brewers, not the best lineup. But Duplantier shouldn't be a high strikeout guy, which is the big pitfall for Milwaukee. Travis Shaw specifically is $2,200, good, or at least a decent batted ball profile against righties. So I think that if you're looking for a one-off, need a low salary guy, I would say check out Shaw against Duplantier and see if he can take advantage of the balls in play that he is likely to allow. That is all the time that we have for today. One last thing for me before I head out is I will have the Q&A today at 4 p.m. Eastern, the FanDuel YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, and Twitter pages. Make sure you subscribe there. Also have a NASCAR podcast for Sonoma today as opposed to tomorrow since I am out. That'll be at 10:30 on the FanDuel YouTube page, also up on the numberFire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed immediately after that. So make sure you check out the numberFire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed. No matter where you get your podcasts, hit subscribe. And if you like what you hear, leave us a rating and review as well. I am on Twitter at Jim Sannes, JimSannes. Make sure you follow Tom on Twitter for the Solo Shot Friday, Monday, Tuesday. He is at DFS_Tom. And also follow the FanDuel Podcast Network at FanDuel Podcasts. Big thank you to Calvin Theobald, our video producer, for setting up the video broadcast for today. Thank you, Cal, as always. And thank you to everyone for tuning in. I'll talk to you once again next week, but have fun with Tom tomorrow and Monday and Tuesday. Talk to you again soon. This has been the Solo Shot right here on the FanDuel Podcast Network.